Hello, everybody. Hello, and welcome to this week's MRAdio, the men's rights radio show specifically focused on the United Kingdom. As always, we have our wonderful presenter, Elizabeth Hobson. Elizabeth, the floor is yours.
Hello. I thought you were going to introduce yourself after that. That would have been entertaining. Yes, hello, Philip. How are you? We also have our wonderful presenter, Philip, who's much more, integral to the operation than I am. He's found all the links as usual and knows what we're talking about.
I would say much more. There's one thing, much more masculine. That's true.
You know what? You broke up a little bit there. So I know you said that one of us was much more masculine, but I'm not sure who.
I said me. I'm the one who's much more masculine. Just to clarify that, I'm the masculine one.
Thank you for the
Don't
clarification.
take that away from me. Do not take that away from me. Don't take that away from me. Yeah, my name is Philip Tanser. I'm the founder of Gender Parity UK, and tonight I'm wearing this shirt. God is greater than the government, leading us into a revolution. Exactly. Elizabeth, would you like to introduce your co-host on your back, on your shoulder?
Oh, that.
Your little lizard friend.
This is Hakim. He's a little lizard, but one day he's going to be a big lizard. I've also got two cats either side of me, but they're pretending to be dead right now. If they stop pretending to be dead, I'll hold them up so you can see them. They're only little babies. They're brothers.
When you said that your little lizard's going to be a big lizard one day, I was thinking, I think you watched too much Game of Thrones.
No, it's Pokemon. He's gonna evolve into Charizard.
So for tonight we have two wonderful topics in regards to men's issues and men's rights and the cancer that is feminism. And the first topic we're gonna talk about today is, just a second, feminism in foreign policy. So I came across this today, this story, and it was just too ridiculous not to talk about it. In this case, I think it was in connection with, was it Denmark or the Netherlands? I think the Netherlands. So they are hosting a conference about, Netherlands. It was about feminist foreign policy. And we thought we'd share with you a couple of the absolutely insane things that they're talking about. So let me just go to the slide. Let's read about the conference. Just a second, I want to make sure that it's big enough for everybody to read. How's that for you, Elizabeth? Is that okay? Okay. So, questions and answers regarding Shaping Feminist Foreign Policy Conference 2023. What is the conference about? The Netherlands is organizing an international conference on feminist foreign policy, Shaping Feminist Foreign Policy 2023. The conference falls within the context of the Dutch government's feminist foreign policy, which strives for equal rights and equality for all people worldwide. The conference will be held on 1st and 2nd November 2023 in The Hague. The Netherlands is also involved in organizing a high-level ministerial event on feminist foreign policy that will be held at the UN General Assembly in New York in the lead-up to Shaping Feminist Foreign Policy 2023. Countries with feminist foreign policies will be invited to attend this event to discuss and address future steps and confirm political commitments in the field of feminist foreign policy. These political commitments will then serve as a basis for further elaboration at SFFP 2023 in The Hague. The Netherlands anticipate that there will be some 500 participants in attendance at SFFP 2023, including policymakers, representatives of civil society organizations, academics, members of the business community, and journalists from around the world. The conference, which will be in person and by invitation only, will comprise a wide variety of plenary and breakout sessions, talk show style events, demonstrations, exhibitions, debates, and workshops, and will offer ample opportunity for networking. Some parts will also be put online and made available to a general public on the Dutch Ministry of Foreign Affairs YouTube channel. Okay. What are your thoughts, Elizabeth?
So we've got 500 people who are going to go in there and decide what is best for all. What are we at, like 8 billion at the moment? All 8 billion of us. And they are civil society organisations, policymakers, academics, members of the business world. Like, this is the public-private partnership thing that we've been doing so well with recently. You know, full sort of WEF stuff. And it's just, yeah, I do feel like it's a pernicious form of colonialism. And it's particularly bizarre because demonstrably feminism is not helping the Western world, and yet this organization is meeting.
And also the support for feminism is dramatically going down.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, like who are they representing? Like, which citizens of the world want them to do this?
Well, it's very obvious that it's part of this cabal that we're sometimes talking about, and it's well funded. Otherwise, they would not be able to invite these people and to organize an event like this. I would assume. And the question itself is, what is feminist foreign policy? And then this complete BS that is about equality for all people. It's like, if it's equality for all people, it would not be called feminist foreign policy.
No, exactly.
It would be humanist foreign policy.
Yeah. Which is perfectly acceptable to everybody, I'm sure. But yeah, you know, they mention that's like, it's just a thing to say, isn't it? Equality for all people. Because if you then go down to the program where they list their goals, which are horrendous, they only talk about women and girls.
Yeah, we're going to look at them in a moment. We're going to look.
There is no equality for all that they're going to, you know, that they're interested in.
Yeah. Let me, I just want to look something up on their website real quick.
And also I find it interesting that it mentions that some of the events are going to be recorded and shared publicly. It's like, as you say, it's, I'm sure, a well-funded event. So why can't we watch all of it? What are they talking about that they don't think we need to know?
Yeah, it's very clear. It's and I wonder what the percentage of participants are that are male. It's probably in the 1%. I would assume. So what we're having here is politicians, policymakers, very influential people, pretty much exclusively women, having let's say a secret meeting, because not everything is public, as we established. Not everything is public, and they're deciding about foreign policy of the world. Really, that's terrifying.
Yeah, and they are quite clear about what they are in opposition to in the goals that are going to be listed, which we'll go into. But in a word, they seek to disrupt traditions. They think that it is a moral and just cause to go around the world telling people that the systems, and the way you have run society, like inheritance and stuff like that, for centuries is unacceptable and you must do it in another way. And, there are reasons why there are the kind of traditions wherein, when people have a lot of children, it is better to give all of the land to one child. Otherwise, you're just breaking it up until no one in the family owns anything of worth. And then Bill Gates can roll in and buy it all for nothing.
Yeah. That actually, it's interesting that you talk about that with when people have children, because Stephen Hatterley was asking in the comment section, will a feminist foreign policy address falling birth rates? That's an excellent question, and I think we know the answer to that.
I know.
Feminist policies are anti-human policies, I would say.
Yeah, 100% they are. And it's funny because, like, if it was a feminine foreign policy, and if they were actually listening to women, listening to the concerns that they have and the struggles they have, watching the Birth Gap movie and hearing these women who have missed their opportunity to have children and realised that the feminist messaging duped them, and now they are never going to have children and they're really upset about it, then they would be addressing falling birth rates, but they're not, are they? They're going to go round to women who haven't got the message yet and tell them all to kill anything that they accidentally conceive, and focus on being a rat in a cage in some office because it's much better, it's much more empowered, honestly.
I'm gonna share the goals of the conference with you. Just a second. Just trying to find it. I'm so bad at this job.
It's under program, fairly near the top. Program, then one paragraph, then the goals.
Okay. Program. Here we go. So I'm gonna read the introduction as well. The main goal of SFFP 2023 is to put feminist foreign policy on the agenda and further shape it. both in the Netherlands and globally. In addition, the conference aims to increase the network of like-minded countries and countries with an active feminist foreign policy in order to facilitate connections and the sharing of knowledge and best practice. One of the main themes of this conference is resources. The event aims to call attention to the need for additional funding, what a surprise, for women's rights organizations and movements in the Netherlands and abroad. Ka-ching, ka-ching, ka-fucking ching. Oh my God, it's such a grift.
It's such a grift, man. Such a grift.
Always money and power. They really don't care about women at all. It's just about money. It's ridiculous.
Exactly.
So, what are the themes of the conference? In line with the Dutch feminist foreign policy, the conference will be organized along the following themes. 1. Rights. Women and marginalized groups worldwide must be able to invoke their universal rights and be safe from violence. Representation. Women and marginalized groups must be represented and meaningfully involved in political and social decision-making processes. Resources. There must be sufficient resources to implement feminist foreign policy. It is also important that women's rights organizations and movements worldwide receive financial support. Ka-ching! Reality check. Reality check, since conditions differ around the world and not every approach has the same effect everywhere. The goals listed under rights and representation must always be adapted to the local context. This also means periodically checking the policy impact and whether the right target groups are being reached. So,
actually, you know what? To be fair, that is like probably the most reasonable and sensible thing I've ever read. A load of feminists wanting to do to actually check on the impacts that they're having. It's normally like there is none of that. They just blindly want to pursue more feminism. I mean, how much I believe them is another question, but you know, props to them for actually saying it.
I mean, yes, I theoretically I agree, but I wonder if that is in part to make sure that people that are countries or people that are not fully on board with feminism say, well, they take our needs into consideration.
Yes.
I mean,
also, if what they find is that the policies that they have pushed on various places are not working, what is their conclusion going to be? It's going to be the same conclusion feminists always have, that we need more feminism then, don't we?
Yeah. Now, when we look at this, I mean, it's so infuriating because it's such complete BS. As you mentioned earlier, they say it's all about treating everybody the same and equality for everybody. And then already in number 1, it says, right, women and marginalized groups worldwide must be able to invoke their universal rights and be safe from violence. Man, screw them. Doesn't matter. The fact that men experience much higher levels of violence doesn't matter at all.
No, and the poor boys that we're all sending down big holes in Africa to get our rare earth minerals for our phones and our what do they call it, our environmentally friendly technology, all of that crap, like, they're not included, are they? Because they're male, so their universal rights, they're not a priority, not for this lot.
Yeah, and then obviously point number 3, resources. Ka-ching. It's always about that, and the thing is, you could say, well, it's just a grift. The problem is that they use the money that they're getting for more lobbying. more lobbying for more power, for more money, and it grows and grows and grows. I actually heard about this feminist foreign policy, I think 2 years ago or so. I heard about it for the first time. And I just laughed because it was so ridiculous. And I thought, come on, nobody's taking this seriously, clearly. And here's a massive conference with 500 people, probably well funded.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's being organised by the Netherlands Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Like, this is serious. It's not fringe wackos meeting up like we do. You know, this is people who are going to be affecting others around the world.
But am I wrong to think that the Netherlands now already have a right-leaning government, or is the right-leaning party just gaining traction?
You know,
could you look that up real quick?
Yeah, I'm going to look it up. Oh, I've turned on airplane mode. Bear with me. Didn't want to be interrupted.
Because if a conservative or right-leaning party is actually in power in the Netherlands currently, then we should definitely contact them and say, hey, what's going on there? Well, actually, to be honest, we should contact the conservative parties in the Netherlands anyways and tell them about this.
Okay, they've got a lot of people protesting.
Mm-hmm.
Climate issues. The police have used water cannons on 2,400 climate activists 4 days ago.
Yeah, I saw that. Funny.
About time. What to know?
Oh God! Can you imagine? Okay, so just imagine a future. Imagine a future where they use the water cannons against feminists. Well, that's the only thing that gets them wet. I'm sorry.
Dear.
It's the alcohol. It's almost gone. It's the alcohol speaking. It's not me. It's the alcohol.
So back in, what was this, July? The government abruptly collapsed.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
so
they've got proportional representation, so they've got a load of people. They had Christian Democrats, some progressive party. Yeah, it's all kinds of nonsense. See, that's the difficulty with a lot of proportional representation systems. Like, you just end up with a load of people who are fundamentally opposed to each other in principle, trying to run a government. But yeah, I mean, even that second goal that was talking about how women need to be represented in legislation, writing legislation and like boards of businesses, it's just erroneous. Like, why would they need to do that? We've done all of the research. We know that just like the vast majority of people don't want to take those jobs for good reason, more women don't want to do it than men do, you know, and just let the people who want to do it and have the aptitude to do it. All we're going to do is, you know, get worse people in those jobs.
Yeah.
And if we're talking about foreign policy, why don't we look at the voting records? Because I know in our country, women were more likely, like women parliamentarians were more likely to vote to go into Iraq and to intervene in Syria. And I don't think that's a great foreign policy decision for, you know,
wait
in the Middle East.
Sorry,
Yeah.
Elizabeth, I don't think you're supposed to say that, though.
Oh, wait, did I go off message?
Yeah, I think you went off message. Yeah, no, women do not vote for war. Women generally don't support war. and women usually make the best decisions regarding foreign policy.
Because actually, if it was just women ruling the world, there would be no war at all, and we'd all be like yogurt.
I mean, just look at Hillary Clinton.
Hillary peace lover Clinton, yeah.
Exactly. It's so funny. Just a second, Terry, I think Terry White just joined the live stream, and all he heard was the last 2 minutes, and he's like, "What?" Terry, it was a joke. We were joking about it. Women are more. Women are statistically speaking more likely to vote for war. Pardon, what were you saying?
I said that you were just trying to save me from being a terrible misogynist.
Exactly. And I hope I succeeded.
I accidentally did facts, and it turned out to be misogynistic.
Exactly.
I'll try
one more thing that I wanted to share from the Feminist Foreign Policies Conference is this, where in regards to press conference, how can I cover the conference as a journalist from the conference venue in The Hague? You are welcome to report on SFFP 2023 from the World Forum in The Hague. To do so, you must register well in advance. Check our website regularly for information about registration, news, and updates. So, if we have a journalist, we could actually apply to go there. But I'm pretty sure you have to apply well in advance because they are screening you. I'd be very surprised.
Oh, I bet they are screening well.
Yeah. Terry White. I came late into it and couldn't believe my ears. It's called sarcasm.
If we could get like Joanna Williams or who's the ginger bird?
Don't know.
You know the ginger bird from Spike.
No, I don't know who the ginger bird.
Yeah, like one of them, one of that lot in there.
Okay. It would be great. It would be great to get one of our people there. Honestly, God, maybe we should actually recommend to GB News if they want to send a journalist to that. It would be hilarious.
I mean,
but I don't think
it might be worth. It might be worth emailing just to see, like, what comes back. Because I imagine, you know, the qualification is going to be that you are an absolute card-carrying, insane, radical feminist. But
probably, yeah.
I would be interested
the Guardian
to see if they like had the decency to write back and say we've looked at your stuff and you're a bigot to like people who are just perfectly nice but not 100% on message.
Yeah.
Which is why I'm thinking of like people who are generally sort of respectable but just fall slightly, you know, they're just a little bit critical of nonsense.
Yeah. Now what I was thinking, obviously this takes place in The Hague, and a couple of weeks ago we talked about the so-called Hague mothers. Remember the mothers that abducted their children, and now they're crying because there are actually laws against the abduction of children, even though they're unfortunately not enforced for the most part. Yeah, so I wouldn't be surprised if that will be mentioned in this conference as well. And also the fact that this conference is about feminist foreign policy. We in the last couple of episodes we mentioned several times that it's quite curious that the same topics are being brought up all over the Western world, from America, Canada, all the European countries. It seems like they're always on message. when it comes to, for example, parental alienation or family court reform, or in that case with the Hague, the Hague mothers. It seems like there is an organizing body who says this is the next topic, this is what we're focusing now, and then the media falls in lockstep.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know to what degree there needs to be organisation. It's like of a very specific kind. I think in some cases there are, but I also think there's just been this perverse subversion, and there really is a sort of hive mind effect going on where people, just respond. They just instinctively know what they need to do a lot of the time, and it's they catch on to the latest, this is the message, and it can change quite rapidly, but they all just get it, and for social reasons and status reasons fall in line very easily.
That is so hard to tell sometimes, to what extent something is actually coordinated and organized, and to what extent, you're correct, that the system is just already designed in a way that everything just moves in one direction. Remember last week we reported about the Minister for Men conversation on BBC Women's Hour, and all of a sudden the next day there were so many articles written in several magazines on Minister for Men, and one day later it was already out of the news. It seems like all the news get the information from the same sources and they report about the same stuff. So maybe you're right. Maybe there is no organization or nothing that pushes the agenda. On the other hand, I would say the existence of this conference points towards there is an agenda and there isn't some kind of organization.
Yeah, that was interesting what you said about all of the news articles coming out about the Minister for Men and then it suddenly being dropped. I wonder in that instance if what happened was that all these articles got put out and then all these comments started being left under that were profoundly positive, and then the editors and all of the chattering classes were like, oh no, that's not nice, let's not please those people and just stopped talking about it. Let's just stop talking about it because the wrong people like this.
Unfortunately, I think it's much simpler. I think that the media is just so fast that unless it's a big event that you can capitalize on for several days, I think it's just in and out. We live in a world where topics are not really talked about and reflected on. They're just for a very short moment. Hello, kitty cat. Not very cute.
This is Tucker.
What's your name?
His name Tucker. He's named after Tucker Carlson, and he's got a collar, and on one side it says his name, and on the other side it says, I try to tell the truth.
That's so cool. Like it.
But I mean, even with the organisation thing, I think it's there are certainly forces that malevolently try to organise. I mean, look, what's been going on in the world with every government moving in lockstep over the last few years on so many issues, even though they claim to espouse different principles. However, I don't know how important it is, certainly who is organising, because I think you could take out all the individuals and more would step up, and that's just a feature of power being so addictive. We've known that it is like that it corrupts people very easily for a long time. We've got the wisdom of like the founding fathers to refer back to. We've got psychological research to refer to. And it is our job as citizens to be responsible and with where we, loan our power to with our votes, or who we loan our power to, and to police what's being done with it afterwards. But we haven't been doing that for decades.
Yeah. I'm just gonna read one last bit from this conference before we move on to the next topic. What is the purpose of the conference? SFFP 2023 falls within the context of the Dutch government's feminist foreign policy, which strives for equal rights and equality for all people worldwide. Women make up half of the world's population, yet they rarely have equal representation in places where decisions are made about their lives, such as in politics or on management boards. As long as the rights of women and girls remain uncertain, they will face discrimination, including in financial and legal terms, unequal access to property, land, inheritance, loans, and education. This violates their rights and makes them vulnerable to poverty, dependence, and violence. However, it is not just about women and girls. Other marginalized groups, including LGBTQIA+ persons, also face diverse and often interwoven forms of disadvantage, exclusion, and inequality. Opting for a feminist foreign policy means making equality and equal rights for all the main focus in all aspects of Dutch foreign policy. In doing so, the Netherlands has joined a group of pioneering countries, including Canada, Chile, France, Germany, Luxembourg, Mexico, and Spain, that are campaigning internationally for gender equality. SFFP 2023 is the second edition of this conference. The first was held in 2022 by Germany. Next year's host will be Mexico. So what really stands out for me there is the fact that there's in the past they said there is no representation for women and girls. Now it's like there's not equal representation for women and girls, and it becomes more and more specific because obviously women hold so much power now all over the world that they have to become more and more specific where women are underrepresented to still make a claim that there is need for a feminist policy.
Well, yeah, but I mean, they have never at any point, all of these people, and they go on about representation of various demographics till I want to vomit, but nobody's ever proven a link between like women not being represented in a government and women not having rights. Like those two things are not necessarily, going to follow on from each other, and they've never proven it.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't happen. Like, I think it's so gross, and it's such a negative view of humanity.
Yeah.
To imagine that a man can't possibly consider women when he's legislating. Like, come on. It's not, like, we're not alien species. Like, we live like that.
Well, unfortunately, it's proven that overall men are much more likely to take the needs of women into consideration than women are to take the needs of men into consideration. That is proven. So, and women are more likely to exclusively focus on women. So we already had an overrepresentation of focus on women when it was almost exclusively men in policy-making positions, and now it just shifts more and more towards women.
And also, can I just point out, like, if they're getting together because they're concerned about women's legal and financial rights, why are Canada invited? Because they don't respect anyone's legal or financial rights in their country.
Yeah, but the truckers were predominantly men. So shut up. By the way, Terry White.
Not in Canada, man. Like Trudeau is very proud of his cabinet. They're all birds.
Yeah.
They're all absolutely happy to freeze the bank accounts of single mothers because they dare to donate to a trucker protest.
Shut up, they're men. These single mothers are men. Terry White left another comment. He said, and he's absolutely right. The problem is worldwide includes countries that are not so hot on equality. They use the evidence from these countries to petition for further rights in countries where there is already legal equality. Absolutely true. And we've seen that time and time again, that in petitions that, for example, fight for more protection of women in the area of violence against women and girls, so domestic abuse, they use statistics and data from African countries, from countries from the Middle East, to petition for stronger laws or more protections for women in the UK, where they have already made way more protections than men, obviously. So yeah, that's absolutely
yeah. But they also, you know what they also do? They also include our perceptions of other countries, which may in fact be erroneous. I looked in a few years ago. I looked into the data on unschooled children, because we're constantly told that, you know, girls are being denied an education. And when I looked, there's like Pakistan and one or two other countries where most of the unschooled children are girls. But overall, globally, most unschooled children are boys. And that's because they're kind of useful. Like, they can lift some pretty heavy stuff, boys. You know, we can send them down mines, but the girls can't really do anything, so they can go to school. But it's like, it is literally like they're using our prejudice against us, you know, and it's not our fault we have it, because they give us this messaging constantly. But actually, when they're telling us that, you know, oh, like the brown part of the world is really sexist against women, you need to look at the data there as well.
You're so correct. You're absolutely correct. You know that the UK had the plan to send illegal migrants to Rwanda, right?
Mm-hmm.
So when my wife, who's from Botswana, when my wife heard that we sent illegal migrants to Rwanda, she's like, "What? To Rwanda? Oh my God! I wish they would send me to Rwanda. It's an amazing place. The economy is amazing, but we associate it with genocide. But since then, the country has absolutely blossomed, and she said it's pretty much like a Bahrain or something of Africa. They're doing really, really well, and it's a great place to be. It's the same when we hear Ethiopia. My wife had to stop in Ethiopia on a flight to the UK, and I said, "Oh, make sure to pack some lunch."
Yeah,
and she said, "Why?" And I said, "Well, the famine. They don't have food in Ethiopia." And she was like, "What are you talking about? They're doing great." So yeah, you're 100% right. We have these prejudices, and it's so easy to use them to say, well, some people in these countries really need our help, and because we don't really know what's going on there, we just assume that's the truth.
Well, yeah. I mean, you know, we are bombarded with the messaging, but then, you know, it's other things. It's like the burqa, when people talk about that as being a feature, like a misogynistic thing that they kind of oppress women with. It's like, yes, the women are oppressed, but it's not due to misogyny, it's due to misandry. It's because they think that these women need protecting with all of this fabric, because if a man sees any part of a woman, he's going to go mad with desire and rape her. It's like the women aren't being,
put down.
No.
Yeah. Well, I've been to Egypt many times, and the power relations between women and men are really quite equal. I mean, the men are quite fearful of their wives at home, and they're like, oh shit, what's my wife gonna say if I don't bring enough money home? So there is, the men have the power in the public, but the women have the power at home. That's very, very clear.
Mm.
I'm gonna move on to the next topic. Otherwise, we're gonna go over time as so often. Exactly. So the next topic, we're going back specifically to the UK, and it's about a consultation. There we go. So, from the Law Commission, evidence in sexual offence prosecutions. Sounds a bit boring. So what is this all about? Here it says, how should
Evidence.
the rules...
Do we need it?
Pardon?
I said evidence. Do we need it? Should that be the tagline?
That's hilarious. Yeah, very good. That was a good one. I didn't even think about that. So here it says, how should the rules of evidence respond to misconceptions surrounding sexual offences? Now, I just want to, I'm just going to click on these documents because that's what I had to do for Gender Parity UK.
Like that question is more ridiculous than what I just said. Like, the rules of evidence are the rules of evidence, regardless of what we're talking about.
No, like what you're saying now is ridiculous. That is not true. There's no such thing. So I'm just going to open the consultation paper. So just so that you get a flavor. The first consultation paper is 731 pages long. 731 pages. Yeah, I'm not reading that. Just to let you know, I'm not reading that.
We would definitely go over time if you did.
Exactly. The summary of the consultation paper is 56 pages long. Unfortunately, I have to read this for Gender Parity UK. One of our viewers just now, Terry White, he already has read it. Good boy. But I'm going to open in a moment the overview of our key proposals, because that's just 3 pages. So we're going to open that. But let me just read out the problem according to the government. The problem. The government's end-to-end rape review found that the prevalence of rape and sexual violence has remained steady in the last 5 years, but there has been a sharp decrease in the number of prosecutions since 2016-2017. There are many complex reasons for the decline in cases reaching court. Our focus is on how evidence is used in trials involving sexual offences. Academic research shows that some individuals hold misconceptions about sexual harm, so-called rape myths, in relation to the credibility, behavior, and experience of complainants in cases involving a sexual offense. It is unclear how extensive such misconceptions might be amongst the public and how much impact they can have on the jurors' task of evaluating the evidence. Some argue that jurors need more assistance with assessing evidence in relation to sensitive and challenging issues that may fall outside their own experience and understanding. We will consider whether more needs to be done in our criminal courts to tackle misconceptions. So, translation is, we really need to talk to these jurors because they might actually have a balanced and unindoctrinated opinion, and we can't have that.
Yeah, I'm interested to see like where they're pulling the data from, that there's been, what the rate of was it rape and sexual assault, or just rape? I'm not sure, but what the rate is.
They actually say that they use the term rape to cover rape and sexual assault.
Oh, I see. So it's already more worse. Yeah.
Exactly. So that is already a massive problem. Yeah, right. and even in the document that is 731 pages long, there is not even the definition of what rape and sexual assault is. So in our meeting in Gender Parity UK,
changed, hasn't it?
In our meeting from Gender Parity UK, we looked into the definitions of rape and sexual assault. And first of all, most people know that the outrageous fact that in regards to rape, it has to be penetration with his penis. So if somebody penetrates, be it a man or a woman, with a tool or with a dildo, then it's not rape because it's not perpetrated with the penis. But even when we look, and I didn't know that, even when we look at the offense of sexual assault, it uses the pronoun his and he. So the perpetrator is always defined as masculine. Now our colleague
but to be fair, isn't that would be a tradition within legal documents.
Yes, the problem is that when you talk about crimes like sexual assault and you say his actions, you very clearly gender it, and you actually when we're talking about rape myths, that's a rape myth or the perpetuation of a rape myth.
It depends on the context. I would say whether it's appropriate to change the pronoun of those kind of things, because unless it's a simple history as well.
I've looked into several legal papers before, and usually, if they want to be precise, they constantly use person A, person B. They usually don't use, very often they don't use the pronouns. They always say person A does this, person B does this. If person A puts does this and this. And especially in cases like this, I think it's too sensitive to make it gendered. And our colleague Terry White pointed out that there is a clause that says if there are gendered pronouns used, they are to be read or to be interpreted as gender neutral.
Yeah.
But then,
but I mean, when we're talking about, so if we're talking, rape in this document, which they claim has risen, has increased, but that includes sexual assault. Well, we've added a load of new sexual assaults, haven't we? Isn't upskirting added to it, and revenge porn, and various, all these different kind of things which are more or less reasonable. But even if they should constitute sexual assault, you then can't say, oh no, look, the incidence has increased if you have added another category.
Yeah.
You're not comparing like.
Yeah. And also, especially after Me Too, obviously the amount of allegations, especially historic allegations, went up. But there's practically no evidence.
That was my question about where are they getting the incidence has risen data from?
Yeah. Now, do you want to have a look at the so-called rape myths?
What?
Okay, let's have a look at that.
Sounds like fun.
Yeah, rape myths are a lot of fun.
But I really do fail to see what this has to do with evidence. It's really bothering me.
Well, I think you would have to read the 731 pages document.
It must be in there somewhere. I'm sure it's in there somewhere.
So I would say overall, the consultation and the document, it's obviously not just about these rape myths that we're going to look at in a moment. They're also looking into things, for example, what evidence can be submitted. And what they want to do is they want to leave it at the judge's discretion what evidence can be submitted. Now, the problem is that in universities, legal universities, they are pushing feminist law harder and harder. So they try to reach more and more lawyers and judges to look at the law from a feminist mindset. The problem is they can't reach the jury in the same way. So what they want to do, and we talked about that before, they want to get rid of juries full stop. If they can't get rid of juries, they want to educate them before the trial in these rape myths, so that the jury so that the jury doesn't trust their own senses anymore. So if they, for example, if they look at somebody like Amber Heard and they're like, okay, this person is very clearly lying, before the trial, they have been said, if somebody comes across like they're lying, that is a typical behavior of a real rape victim. Yeah. I'm exaggerating a little bit.
No, you're not. No, that actually is a theory that has been like given as guidance in these kind of situations. But yeah, so they're gonna bias the jury, and then it's gonna be at the judge's discretion whether potentially exonerating evidence is shown or not. Yeah. I mean, my understanding was that judges did have some input into what was appropriate evidence to show anyway. Yeah. But like, what are the limits with that?
The problem is, I mean, we know that there are many cases where people have been found to be innocent because of certain evidence that was submitted, like, for example, text messages and access to their phones. And we cannot allow that people are convicted when they're innocent because we restrict access to evidence.
Yes.
I understand that it's very intrusive for genuine victims if they have to hand over their phone and so on and so forth. And I do think that they need protection, and that it has to be quite confidential in the beginning. But it has to be looked at. The evidence has to be looked at, and communications have to be available to the jury in those cases.
Yeah, unfortunately, there is always the possibility that what is happening in the court is perjury, which is also a crime, and so the court has a responsibility to make sure as best as they can that that's not happening.
Yeah. So let's have a look real quick at some of these rape myths. And the interesting thing, what I want you to do is, what is a myth? A myth is something that did not happen. That is a fantasy, I would say. And here it says myths or misconceptions. And when I read them out, I want you to think about, does anybody actually think that? Does anybody think what they write here? So let's look at the first one. The first myth: rape is most commonly perpetrated by a stranger. It typically occurs outside at night in secluded places. From my perspective, I think yes, some people might think that.
You know what? I'm not even sure I'd go that far. I think that is a trope. It's like a trope that's used in like fiction. But I don't know. I don't think people do believe that.
Yeah. Okay, so that was number one. Number two, rape always involves physical force. I don't think that many people think that, because they include the word always. If they would say rape usually or almost always, but the fact that they included the word always, I don't think that anybody
that discounts it.
That.
Yeah. Yeah.
The next one, rape will always be physically and verbally. Rape will always be physically or verbally resisted. This one, I think, opens a real issue, because I actually would say that if there is no verbal or physical resistance, it's very, very difficult to prove that it was rape.
It depends on the context.
Exactly. Because
if it's within the context of like a marriage, and the person who is alleging that they were raped did not resist in like physically or verbally, then how can you prove that? But then if it is, a stranger in the street dragging someone into the bushes who then freezes, which is, a very common response, I would say that's quite clearly rape.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah.
When gender parity, when we look into the definitions of rape, we're like, oh my God, that is so vague. It's really difficult. I mean, I think that's why these cases are so difficult, and the ever increasing expansion of what sexual assault and rape is and what consent is makes it so hard to actually come to any conclusion, because I think it's actually possible that like rape is almost like Schrödinger's cat. It simultaneously happened and didn't happen, depending on the perception of the people participating in the sexual conduct.
Yeah, and I mean, we literally saw that before our own eyes during the Me Too movement. The number of women I saw talking online going like, oh my God, like, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, 20 years ago, I had this experience and I've only just realized it was rape. And it's like, really? And to be honest, I would add another like myth or misconception to this list, which is that where have we gone? What was the one about?
Oh, I moved it up just a second.
It's just that like physical or verbal resistance doesn't always mean it's rape either. Like that can be part of the fun.
Exactly. exactly.
And and that just goes to show like how difficult women are to fucking read. You know what I mean? That's the fact. And so it's like, this is why we need to be like really sure when we are convicting rapists, not that like we can't be straying into these grey areas. It's too dangerous.
That's the same. I think in the past there was a common understanding that there is a massive difference between miscommunication and rape. To me, rape is predatory.
Yes,
especially nowadays, where there are quite a lot of people that suffer or that are autistic or somewhere on the spectrum. They have a really hard time reading social clues. And I think if somebody who's autistic doesn't really understand how people communicate, and the other person doesn't say no or please stop, and the person continues, sorry, but I cannot send this person to prison just because he's incapable of reading. He or she is incapable of reading social clues. In those situations, you just have to say,
and
"Well, that was a bad experience." I mean, sorry, I had plenty of bad experiences in my life sexually, where I'm like, I didn't really consent, or even sometimes I even consented, and while it was happening, I regretted it, and I was like, well, that's shit just now. I don't enjoy that. Sometimes I did say no, and life is messy. Sex is messy, and I think there's a massive difference between somebody really doing something against your will and miscommunication.
Yeah. And I don't think it serves people well. Like, you talked about if someone doesn't make themselves clear to someone who's autistic and struggling to read signals, the person who in this situation wants to take them to court and have them convicted for rape, I don't think it serves them either. It's like, they don't need to go through the trauma of court and feeling I'm sure it's very humiliating to be in that situation as the complainant, whatever the situation is. I don't think many people will solely get off on the attention, even if they are going like maliciously, but I think that the person in our story there would be better served to brush themselves down and go, I was not clear there, I need to work on that.
Or actually, or if you're still in contact with that person, have a coffee and say, hey, just to let you know, I didn't feel great afterwards. I didn't communicate it well. Just in future, maybe double check. That's the thing. Like, and I think we used to understand that. We used to understand that that we are imperfect in our communications, and if we end up in a situation, and I'm not talking about like brutal rape now, but if we end up in a situation where we feel uncomfortable during a sexual encounter, we have to check, why did we end up in this situation? Like maybe it's better to be in a relationship. And obviously I'm not saying that rape can't happen in a relationship. It does, very clearly. But there are certain situations like one night stands, the whole hookup culture thing. Sorry, but you do increase the likelihood of a negative sexual experience.
Yeah, absolutely.
We were not able to really talk about the consultation in depth because we talked very long about the feminist foreign policy, which was, I think, really, really fascinating, and it's so demoralizing. It's really annoying. So, but we do have to wrap the show up now because we're already 10 minutes over. That time flew, right?
I know, the whole week has though. What's happened this week? I think time has like sped up.
I think it's the fault of the World Economic Forum.
Oh,
most things,
God, you've got to see my kittens. Right, I'm going to move my camera. Mm-hmm. This is adorable. Look at this for brotherly love.
Oh, that's very cute.
The black and white one's named after Tulsi Gabbard, which is really confusing because I keep calling him she, because I named him after a girl, because he's got white on him, like they're white streaks. But
you called him Tulsi Gabbard.
Well, not Tulsi Gabbard. No, like cats don't have surnames, bro.
Just Tulsi. God, I love Tulsi.
Apparently, though, it means sacred basil.
Pardon, say again?
Apparently, Tulsi means sacred basil. And funny enough, like a couple of days after I got them, a friend came to visit me and gave me a basil plant. And then I found out that Tulsi means sacred basil, and I was like, whoa.
It's all connected. It's all connected. By the way, speaking of all connected, and whoa, a couple of weeks ago, I started to. I was never very like great on prayer and stuff like that, but a couple of weeks ago, I started to pray for good business in my shop, because with family you need to make a little bit more money, and I'm not kidding. Since like especially on the days when I pray for good business, I have much better business, and it's crazy. And I'm not saying it's connected, but it's actually happening, which I'm
Good books.
well. I always thought that I shouldn't ask for anything, because things happen the way they should happen. But on the other hand, it's like ask and you will receive, and sometime and like with our thoughts we let's say create reality, or we ask for reality to fall into place. So that's cool. And with that being said, let's end the show as always with a little prayer. It's your turn again.
Okay, I'll do my old favourite from St. Augustine. O Lord, my God, grant me a mind to know you, a heart to seek you, wisdom to find you, faithful perseverance in waiting for you, and a hope of finally embracing you. Amen.
Amen. Thank you very much. And we would ask all the viewers to share the podcast if you enjoyed it, like it, leave comments, and tune in again next week, Thursday at 9 o'clock. Goodbye, everybody.
Bye.